Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Founders Crit. Today we have Chou, the founder of Savvy Screens. Chou, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mustafa. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, give us a brief background about yourself before Savvy Screen. What have you been up to, education and early career?
So I went to Georgetown for undergrad and I graduated in 2009, right in the middle of the last recession. Couldn't get a job that I liked, went to London, did a one-year master's at the London School of Economics. Then I stayed in London. I did some banking and then consulting. And then I moved back home to California where I grew up in 2011 to take over my dad's real estate operating company. That was a business he had built in the 70s, so it needed some modernization. I spent maybe 5 years running that company, did a little bit of real estate private equity in New York in the meantime, and got the family business to a stable place in 2017. We sold about half the assets. My mom took over management of the rest of the company with the team that I put together, and I went to Stanford GSP to do my MBA. And I interned while I was there with the New York City mayor's office doing public-private tech development. Then I graduated about 8 months ago and I moved to New York and I joined the Antler cohort. It's a kind of a pre-business incubator and I'm sure we can get into that. And that was in September and I met a co-founder there in November and we've been working on the startup ever since.
So, what was the motivation and the drive behind, coming up with a startup, just coming out of Stanford, completing the MBA, not taking up Uber or Google or just coming or Brex even for that matter. But
Yeah.
what was the motivation and the thought process?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's a few pieces. There was kind of the internal motivation. I had always wanted to do my own thing. I had the opportunity to run my father's business for 5 years, and that was an amazing learning experience. But it was not something that I had built, and I'd always wanted to start something from zero. And then coming out of Stanford, there was a lot of social pressure to try starting something on your own. So we actually had a lot of entrepreneurs coming out of my class. And the last thing is that I didn't really, I had some ideas around affordable housing and real estate technology. And there weren't a ton of job opportunities like that. I was looking for something pretty specific. So when I didn't find anything that was right up my alley, I figured, I might as well try to do the entrepreneurship thing.
So, and what were the early days like at Savvy Screen, from the product market fit, the UI, the UX, coming up with the coding at the right time? How was all like?
Yeah, well, it's still early days. We got started in the Antler incubator, which is actually a pre-business incubator. So I applied not with a business or a team, but just with my resume. I started from zero. I met my co-founder, Andy, and we actually spent probably a month trying to find a need in the market before we came up with an idea for a business or a product. So we interviewed maybe 50 property managers and brokers and real estate owners, and we asked them about just what their pain points were, specifically around tenant underwriting and information access to the renters. And tenant screening was a problem that we heard over and over and over again. And so, I won't say that we have kind of explosive product market fit, but what we do have is a need in the market around tenant screening that we think is pretty burning right now, just based on all of these conversations that we've had. And in terms of kind of building the product, the process at Antler was, we had 3 months from September to December to form a team and try to prove out some traction around the business. And we did that. We received funding from Antler and also from New Lab Ventures in January. And since then, we've just been trying to sell the product to real estate operators. And we've been working with a dev shop to build the first version of the product that we're about to launch today, actually. So it's a pretty exciting time.
Good luck. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
So your batch experience, at least you experienced one of the kind, in-person trainings and the demo days of all the fall badges are happening virtually. So,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of news coming out that the VCs are rethinking their investment thesis and the valuations are taking a tank as well. So, are you feeling the heat, and what's your post-COVID strategy?
Um, yeah, it's been interesting. So you're right, our cohort was in person and our demo day was virtual, but we've actually gotten some pretty interesting feedback on the virtual demo day from investors. They actually appreciated the pre-recorded videos. They were able to, watch them at 2x or fast forward to the relevant parts of each pitch. So the virtual demo day was actually pretty well received. In terms of COVID response, you're right. Our original plan had been to try to get more traction around the product and raise sometime in the summer. But now that we've heard that diligence periods are a little longer and it's going to take more meetings to close around, we figured we would try to maybe test the market to see if we wanted to get started a little bit earlier. And what we've heard, we've talked to maybe 45 or 50 VCs just through our networks, my GSB network, and then my co-founder, Andy, he used to do prop tech venture capital investing. And we heard, like you said, valuations are down, kind of tracking the public markets. So for real estate, that's down kind of 20%, a lot more meetings. So we've felt it a little bit. We haven't gotten far enough in our fundraising process to really feel that. But I would say where we've been affected is that we had a lot of big real estate operators that were ready to deploy pilots with us on a pretty accelerated timeline based on or compared to what they usually do, just based on their interest in the product. That has slowed down, but we are still deploying with a few people. And I think our strategy around responding is conserving cash. We're kind of in a lucky position because we don't have a lot of operating expenses. Andy and I are taking very small salaries. We have a very kind of financially positive relationship with our dev shop. So we can go pretty far with just the money that we have in the bank. And we're trying to be very mindful of, the resources and the hiring around how we can best kind of further prove out the business and maybe try to raise more money when the market is a little better.
Got it. So last question, we've been all forced to go remote, and at Caper, we're very big advocates of remote work. So how's your experience been like in regards to managing the remote teams, be it the dev team, the marketing, and the sales especially? That's a big challenge as well, doing sales remotely. So how's the experience been?
Yeah. It's been interesting. Our dev team, Andy and I are headquartered in New York. Our dev team is San Francisco. So that relationship has been remote from the beginning. And I would say it's been pretty good. I mean, they're a great dev shop. They're very responsive via things like Slack and daily video calls. So managing them has been, kind of a pleasure, even though it is remote. Andy and I are remote, so we have daily check-ins, and we've kind of tried to institute a lot of the same rituals around signing in, signing off, and just over communicating via text to try to make it easy. And there's a lot of tools I think that have come onto the market like Slack and Notion that make the process a lot easier than it would have been like 5 years ago.
Yeah. Right. So, Chou, thank you so much for being on the show, but I'm sorry we have to cut it short within 8 to 10 minutes, but it was a pleasure having you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mustafa. Thanks for having me.